Hey guys, just doing a little debrief and follow-up video after the tracking class. And first, just want to thank you for being there and making it a class. It's always a joy to explore the mystery of life with people, and appreciate your participation and attention and interest. And just want to encourage you to keep going, from here. And there's so much in tracking. It's just cracking the door open on this whole art. And so I hope you got something valuable and at least are inspired and feel like your tracking eyes were opened or reopened or whatever. So first I just wanted to show you what's going on here at the land. The tracking box, this is one day later, has apparently become the party spot at the land. So since I redid the sand, but check this out. I'll try and show you with the camera. Someone else came and visited. I don't know if you can see that very well. Right in my tracks. And there's a whole nother story here now. But pretty cool. We actually, in all the years I've had this tracking box out here, it's kind of rare to have animals just prance through it randomly. This frequently anyway. So anyway, build a tracking box or have a patch of dirt at your house where you can scratch down to smooth, clear dirt, or put some sand down. And a real trick is to bait the tracking box, which I didn't even do. It's kind of weird that they just kind of walk through there in a new substrate. I don't know. Fun. So anyway, some things I wanted to get across. So there's a number of exercises we didn't quite get to, and games and stuff, which I think I can incorporate into other classes too. So I'm gonna be doing that next week or next month with the path, which is a continuing story of tracking and tracking your life. And kind of looking at how we make meaning in our lives and following that whole thread, a little more of a introduction to journey. So that's another thing I forgot to say actually, was this class, another reason I'm excited about it is it's our first class of our curriculum. It's our introduction to our whole year-long journey and the journey program. So it really sets the tone as the meta skill, the fundamental background skill. And one of the metaphors I forgot to use, which I like, is thinking of tracking as developing a language, the language of nature, or becoming nature literate, being able to read. So it's like learning how to read again and learning how to speak a new language. And in that sense, there is obviously the vocabulary and lexicon of that language, but there's also the grammar, And so I was really focusing on, with our class, focusing on the grammar of tracking, which gives you kind of the rules and the principles, once again, of how tracking works, or more specifically, how to become a tracker. And from that, you can go and start to explore any disturbance or any footprint or any, quote, letter or word of that language, and begin to put it into a meaningful structure. Otherwise, it's just, random disturbances. So I just want to reinforce the idea that everything is a track. If the earth isn't flat, perfectly flat somewhere, then it's a track. And so if you're seeing, even through the grass or in different substrates in the woods and the debris and the leaves, anywhere you go, in the gravel, all of those impressions and changes in the topography from perfect to flat are some sort of track. It might be a rise or it might be a compression, but and we see this actually when it snows. Sometimes we see the amount of information that's around us, the stories that are preserved in the snow, especially when it's just a few inches and the animals come back out and people are around and cars are driving around. You see really quickly how fast the tracks accumulate and how much story is going on around us in the snow, you know, that we ordinarily just can't see or don't notice because it's, you know, on concrete or on the driveway or something. So so just remember that, you know, that kind of disturbance, the tracks are always there. It's just it's training yourself to notice it and to look for it, and then developing the eyes to see it. And this happens through practice of skills of observing baseline and noticing differences in the baseline. So so just to review, really the most important things I think are developing the consciousness of the tracker, or the tracking philosophy, which was asking the sacred question of yourself or of everything going on around you, and always becoming that sacred question to where it's happening automatically and you're living in that space of the quest or the search without having to have all the answers and without having to know. You just have the space of the question, which leads to an opening and into more questioning and a deeper and deeper relationship with whatever you're searching about or discovering, you know. So just beware of labels and answers and finite endpoints that will kind of terminate the story. And, you know, sometimes we need to do that to come to some sort of conclusion and make a decision or whatever. But in the exploration of tracking, especially for practice and play, it's like, why we don't need those hard lines. We don't need to form final conclusions, you know. Always leave your stories a little open to discover more. Just again, like when you're relating to someone you quote know, they can often reveal things about themselves that you didn't know, you know, even after 20 years. So allow the stories to continue and become continuously meaningful to you, which is actually was pointed out by John Vervaeke as a definition of sacred, something that is continuously meaningful and teaching to you in an important way in your life. So what else? Okay, so there's a couple exercises that I'm just going to pass on to you to try out, and one is called the 10-step drill. And the 10-step drill is really simple. It's something you can practice anywhere, and you don't really need anything. It's handy to have like 10 sticks or 10 little something markers. Basically, I use, you know, popsicle sticks are really convenient because they're just little similar sticks. But you can just find a stick on the landscape and break it up into little pieces. But basically, you just need it like little flags or markers. And what you do is you stand at one facing the direction you're going to travel in some substrate. It might be grass, it might be sand, it might be dirt, it might be leaves, whatever, doesn't matter. I just did it here in the near the arena in the grass. But it's nice to start out in some substrate that you can see, you know, something that you can, maybe it's on the edge of your ability to see tracks in, and then make it increasingly harder and challenging. So anyway, you stand and then you just walk 10 steps slowly, practice your fox walk maybe, and you start by marking your first step, and then you walk your 10 steps, and then you mark your last step, and then you can turn around and from that point try to backtrack your steps or go back to where you started, which is usually my preferred way, and then follow and try to relive and remember. And also it's not just a memory game, it's actually trying to see the disturbances. So really cool. Sometimes I'll take a video of myself or have someone watch that can give me feedback. So sometimes a video can help you see how close you were when you lay down all your sticks at the heel of each track and try to mark what you think is the track. So it's a really good practice to, you know, track yourself, and also to be able to see a continuous familiar pattern. You'll get really used to your own gait and you'll be able to see it on different substrates or different, you know, material easier and easier, because for one, you get used to your pattern, you know, and then you just have to see that on whatever you're looking at. So So anyway, I encourage you to try it out. Try it on something easy, and then make it a little harder and harder. And take time. You need to get down on your hands and knees and study really close each track if you can't see it. Try not to skip to the next one. You know, if you say the first one's super easy because you marked it, second one maybe you see, the third one might be hard, right? So you want to hang out with that. You can glance ahead and see if you can see the other ones, but the key is to change your perspective a lot. You want to get really close. You want to step back and look in wide angle vision. Sometimes they'll all pop out, you know. You want to get super like microscopic close and look for stuff like, you know, little tiny dewdrops that are squished or bent over grass or bruised grass, or maybe a little bit of sand, a grain of sand laying on a blade of grass that wasn't there before. So anyway, you have to kind of reconstruct your tracks until you can see all 10. And then sometimes you don't see them all, it's fine. And it's a good practice actually to lay, instead of standing the stick at the heel of the track. If you don't know if it's a track for sure, if you're just guessing, to indicate that by just laying it down kind of flat next to the track as a maybe track, you know. And then by the time you get to the end, if you come back, you might be able to see the pattern, and just looking at the cadence of the gait might help you actually see where the track is. You might, oh, there it is, it was right between those two. So all of the skills of tracking kind of help, and you want to take as many perspectives as possible. Again, looking from both directions, from above, from real close, and vary your vision, as Stalking Wolf would say. So that's one of the drills to play with. And the other thing I wanted to share was a chunk I try to get in there, which is a kind of a cheat guide to tracking animals, and specifically mammals. So, and this guide is useful almost anywhere in the country, but it's specifically really useful for here. And the trick basically is, instead of trying to memorize the 50 mammals of our Olympic Peninsula and know all of their footprints, is to group them into categories. And these categories are specifically families, or kind of family groupings. They're similar, not technically in taxonomically exactly families, but they are close enough. So these are very similar groups of species. So, for example, rodents, the rodent family, the weasel family, the rabbit and hare families, the ungulates, which would be the deer and elk and anything with hooves, and then the cats, feline family, and the canine family, the dogs. Also in there we have things that have tracks that look kind of like people, and that would be the raccoons, the bears, and even opossums have a strange kind of looking hand. So there's a few things that don't fit into this, you know, obviously the birds and the reptiles and stuff, but it's a really good way to group the animals together and have a sense of patterns. It's a pattern approach to tracking, and once you know, it's much easier to look for 7 things than it is to look for 50 things, right? And to rule out things that aren't in your environment. That's actually a whole nother trick, is to just get familiar with what's not in your environment. You know, what species of deer aren't there, and what mammals aren't there. So those 2 things, and I'm including a picture in this video of that chart, and it's also found at the back of Tom Brown's Field Guide to Nature Observation and Tracking, which is a great book, highly recommend. And yeah, so if you have any other questions, or you know, if you want to dive deeper into tracking, go explore, get out in the woods, remember your fox walk and your sit spot. And one more tool that you can try on is journaling. And so, you know, keeping track of your adventures by writing down what you observed, or maybe drawing pictures of tracks. Drawing tracks is a brilliant way to get good at seeing tracks, because it forces you to kind of perceive differently, and to look deeper, and to reinforce what you're seeing with other senses like touch through drawing. So anyways, keeping a journal of your what you're seeing, maybe the little story that goes along with it, and maybe even collecting stuff like feathers and bones and parts of animals that intrigue you, or things on the landscape that you find cool, and making a little altar or nature museum in your house is really fun too, of your adventures. So encourage you to turn your wanderings in nature into more than just meaningless wanderings, letting them, keep wandering, but also let them be searches and treasure hunts, and go out there with curiosity and see what you discover, and turn it into a big journey of tracking. So look forward to sharing more with you about the perspectives of tracking in the next two classes, the path coming up in May, and then know thyself in June, which is where we take the skills of tracking, and turn it onto the internal landscape of you and self-tracking. Really powerful. So lots of great resources out there. Keep diving into the books, use the Google, and keep your eye as a tracker open. And until next time, take care, keep going.